I would say that as a company we have a very global portfolio, and we have common strategies across all of our markets, but we also do market-specific investments. And if you look in any of our major growth sectors right now, you will see that there is a huge explosion of technology, and there's also a huge explosion of education businesses coming through. And I think that's happening because there is emerging middle classes and affluence in the major markets that we look at as priorities now, like Brazil and China and India. And I think there is a real huge focus on driving education for self-improvement and market growth. So we see huge opportunities both in the US, Europe and emerging markets in e-learning. And I think e-learning is a very general term. What we're talking about is technology-enabled education services. Like I said, technology for us it cuts down distances, it cuts down access, it makes things affordable, it makes things more direct. And one thing Tutor Vista does so brilliantly is takes educators in one field and exports that talent to a different market. And so for us, there's a huge amount of activity in the personalised learning space, in test preparation, in outside school learning, and so Tutor Vista does lots of those key things for us. So Pearson 10, 15 years ago was a product-based print company, and we had a wonderful media portfolio which was a newspaper that was launched in 1888. We had a wonderful Penguin Books library, which had been going since 1935, and we have a brilliant textbook business, Pearson Education, and they power and they fill library shelves all over the education space worldwide. But they were physical product companies, and what we've done in the last 15 years is transform Pearson from a product-centric company to a services-focused business. And so right now Pearson's investment strategy focuses on companies that can help us drive that services business. And so we say this time and time again that the kind of affordability and accessibility is such a huge driver in our education growth, and companies that can help us reach new markets, new consumers, make education a more personal experience, that's where we spend our time. I think it's interesting being here this weekend, because if you look around the walls, we did a review of all the companies last night, and gamification is an overused word, but it's also a very popular thread amongst all of these companies, several of these companies this weekend. I think that one thing that education publishers risk doing is not meeting students where they like to play or engage. So there's no reason, just because a student uses their Connect or their smartphone for gaming, why shouldn't we meet them there with educational experiences? So we take that very seriously at Pearson, and we've launched some of our we have a very successful gaming business in Pop Tropica. We're also launching new startups, companies like Alley-Oop, which focuses on test preparation with gaming elements built in, because kids, young students, they're used to social networks and gaming experiences which validate them. They get used to, they're allowed to fail and then keep kind of plugging in failed areas and keep learning and improving that particular focus. And they like winning points, and they like getting validation, and that is something we build into education now. And I think that touches on personalisation. So why should 3 students in one classroom who all have very different brains hardwired in a different way, why should they have one standard education experience? They should have personalised experiences, and that's again something that we take very seriously, and we're running our own prototypes around how you can personalise that. Adaptive learning plugs content back into areas of students' experiences that they may be failing in, and we can assess that by accessing data and taking it back. So that would be another area. I think general mobile technology in student hands is it's not a trend, it's a reality now, and that kind of multi-screen experience of what you're phone does, what your tablet does, what your smart TV at home does, what the whiteboard is telling you. There are real opportunities for a very immersive education experience through using those multi-screens. So we like that a lot. There are lots of trends in education technology. I think we're always thinking about data and how to use it better. So companies which can analyse student data and serve more appropriate services is the absolute backbone of what we do now. We have to be as smart as possible about interpretation and analysis of a experience and then being appropriate, because I think if you're not, if you risk losing relevancy, you're irrelevant. That sounds a very simple way of saying it, but you have to serve appropriate data. And I think we're very interested in formal learning. So what do you do outside the classroom? Or most education companies tend to look at education as something that happens from around 5 to your university graduation day, and then you stop. And I think the world has changed such that I think intelligence and insight is far more valued than it perhaps has been, or your kind of status. I think that, and this is part of social networks and online personalities, what you know and who you know is very valuable these days. And so we're much more interested in the education experience beyond the classroom. So we're looking at businesses of our own that will extend beyond that 25 age bracket, and what does my mum want to learn, what technology, what can that bring to her lifestyle, and what can we teach her about gardening or launching a new business or building websites that she didn't know before, but we can meet her where she wants us to teach her. So there's lots of trends. I think when we look at the kind of partnerships that we value, it's everyone from very big established technology firms and big education players all the way across to an 18-year-old with a great idea. And so our interest in the startup space is fostering that talent and that ecosystem so that the future of education is more exciting as a result. And I think we take mentoring very seriously. I'm not saying that we have it. I would hate to say that we have all the answers or all the expertise to help a particular business. What we do have is experience of building education companies and expanding education companies. So we sponsor a few co-working spaces globally, and that helps us interact with startup communities. A lot of us in the space that I work in stay in touch with startup businesses, and we will help them think about questions that we think about in our own world that might not be relevant to them, but we could try and give some insight. It's a two-way experience. I think people's networks and people's how you share your experience, everything repays itself. And so personally, the mentoring experience for me is a very valuable one. And as a company, I think we're more open and accessible than people may have thought we were before, and it's something that we really take seriously. I think we invest in content a lot. We invest a huge amount of money in content to put into our services, so we really value solid IP and great authors and great experts and great minds. So that's a constant, that's kind of an ungiven. We're always building up our products with the best content. The startup space is exciting in terms of what's coming next. We have our own internal future technologies team. And so each of our businesses, be it Pearson Education, FT or Penguin, they have the best, as far as I'm concerned, digital brains in the market. What we have the luxury of doing in our Future Technologies group is looking slightly further beyond their viewpoints and thinking what's coming down the pipeline in the market 18 months ahead. What are the technologies that we should be prototyping? What should we be building? So we're always looking at new concepts and what that might mean for our businesses, and we're running lots of prototypes with startup companies. We run lots of pilots, and I think we're taking a much more focused view on open and the value of open. So we have an API platform now, Plug and Play, and the focus of that is to take down lots of the walls that exist between us and the developer and community, because while we have lots of great creative talent internally, we also recognise that to truly build something and scale something, more voices in the party can be a very rich experience. So we have built this Plug and Play API, which allows third-party developers to come in and interrogate and use content from our data sets. So that for us is I think a huge step forward, because we're relinquishing some of the control over what happens with our product development, but we're also bringing in great talent to our circle of business, and we're meeting and seeing some fantastic business ideas as a result. So that's something that you'll see more from us in the next year. Education businesses don't tend to make an immediate return, like you say, in a year. I think you even have to look beyond 5 years. But then I would look at Pearson's share price and where we've taken it over the last 5 years and say that we make a pretty good investment. So we must be doing something that is growing those businesses right.